Naval is the importer of the Configura type of chair, and he has distributed by Hydro Healthcare in South Australia. So they'll be your port of call for trials or any questions you have. So I guess we're here as supporting them, and I'd also like to introduce Deborah. Deborah's from represents the manufacturer, Configura, and she's come out from the UK. Today is she goes home later today. So
it's been great, but it's been fixed.
So last Monday we kicked off in Brisbane. Then we went up to Rockhampton on Tuesday, Townsville on Wednesday, Darwin on Thursday, and back to the Sunshine Coast. And then on Monday we kicked off in Sydney. Tuesday was Albury in the morning and Wangaratta in the afternoon. Yesterday was Melbourne in the morning and Launceston in the afternoon.
Well, yeah, you should look around then, haven't you? Yeah. 7 states apparently. Yes.
Around the world within Australia. Yeah. And then here today, so she's...
But I've still got the energy for doing it.
And she's still looking so good. So, yeah, we're very privileged to have her, and I think what Deborah brings as an occupational therapist is just some of the clinical insights. She's done a lot with the chair, so her role is as an occupational therapist. She works for the company part-time, and then in the UK she's a prescriber, authoriser of equipment, so she's got her own caseload. So she's had a lot of work with this chair, and hopefully she can share some valuable insights. So I'll probably, without wasting any more time, I'll hand over to Deborah.
Thank you.
And then I've just got a few other things to do, but I'll come right at the end and I'll just give a bit of a summary of the brochure. Is that all right?
Yeah, that's great. Thank you.
Good. All right, but I think nice to have an interactive session, so questions, very large questions. So.
That's what I was going to say next is please get involved as much as possible. It just makes it a little interesting.
Has any one of you actually used this chair previously?
Yeah.
Oh, you have? Yeah.
As an organisation, we've actually got some arrangements.
Yeah, excellent.
So we're going to ask if they don't mind to share an experience or two, just so that it gives other people an insight into how it can meet these specific cases.
Sure. All right. Well, thanks very much for coming.
Thank you. Okay. So welcome. Thank you for designing cheese. I'm an occupational therapist, and my role with the company is really focusing on training from a clinical perspective. So looking at how the products can be used to promote independence, reduce risk, reduce care burden. I still practice as an OT, so I do a lot of manual handling, seating, adaptations, general equipment provision. But I also do some authorisation as well. So if we have occupational therapists in the public sector in my area that are requesting specialist equipment, then they need to send through a clinical justification to say why they need that particular item and not something more cost effective, and I look at authorising. So clinical justification is really key and really important to me, and I think we're going to touch a lot on that today because I think that's quite relevant as well. Generally you're private or you working for NDIS, BBA, anything like that? Mixture?
Not-for-profit aged care.
Pardon?
Not-for-profit aged care.
Not-for-profit aged care?
Yeah.
All of you?
No.
Okay, great, excellent, brilliant. Okay, great. So this is what we're going to be talking about today. We're going to be talking about why we issue seating. So what kind of difficulties are we coming across? What needs do we need to meet? We'll be looking at the size, pressure and posture element of seating, because those are the three key things that we'll look at when we're talking about seating. We'll then look at bariatric seating a little bit. Have any of you worked with bariatric clients before? Yeah? Complicated? Yeah, it can be really tricky. So we'll talk about some things that I think can be quite useful when measuring and considering bariatric users and about our bariatric chair. Now just to add while I remember it, the bariatric chair isn't going to actually be available for at least 2-3 months, but it is something that is coming, so it will be available. So we haven't got one to show you today, but we can talk through and we've got some images and things. And then we'll just summarise at the end. So, actually going back. Alright, first of all, just to say, I think in your packs you've probably got a copy of this presentation. So if you want to make notes, you can. A lot of the information, hopefully you'll see on here, so don't worry about writing dimensions and sizes and features because it's all in your pack. But let's talk about why we issue seating. What needs are you out there to meet? What difficulties are you coming across where you're going out to assess a client's seating needs?
Getting out of the chair.
Getting out of the chair, absolutely. Anything else? Pressure?
Comfort.
That is?
Sliding out.
Sliding out, absolutely. Comfort? Yeah, there's a lot of reasons why we are out there doing seating assessments. There's lots of needs that can be met with the right chair. So if we just look at that difficulty with transfers, let's think back to our very basic difficulty. Somebody that has some difficulty, they're able to stand, but it's a real struggle for them. Sometimes it can just be a matter of the chair not being quite high enough. So what do we want to do? We just raise it. Yeah. So sometimes it's as simple as putting the chair raiser on, and you've met the need. What I really feel is that with all of these difficulties, all of these needs that we're looking at, actually many of them are linked in. And if you get one right, you'll have met the other need. So thinking about difficulty with transfers, if we get somebody in the right size chair, actually what we're doing is we're giving them more of an opportunity to manage their transfers. But also, if they are in the right size chair, they're going to get all the postural support, not all, because some of them have additional needs, but they will get appropriate postural support from the chair. They'll also have better pressure distribution because their body is going to be well supported, so therefore there's hopefully not going to be a build-up in one small area, but actually spread out. Oedema in the lower limbs, again, if the chair is the right size and they can elevate their legs, they're going to have the fluid being drained more easily, and therefore that's going to manage their oedema. So we've got all of these things that link in. So difficulty with transfers, we're talking about raising the chair slightly, but if that's not quite enough, what we're going to do, we might look at putting in a lift chair. And this is a lift chair, but it's a slightly more complex lift chair than the average one. And what we have to think about when talking about lift chairs is that they won't always meet the needs, and you might need additional equipment. And when you're looking at additional equipment, such as a return such as this, or you're looking at a standing hoist, or you're looking at a full lifting hoist, you have to think about the compatibility between the two. Does it work together or doesn't it? And it may be that in itself is a reason why you prescribe additional seating, different seating. So we look at the transfers, we'll look at managing transfers with all those pieces of equipment. Pressure care management, if I just put a cushion on here, what are my risks? I'm not saying it's never appropriate, I'm not saying it's never to be done, because you can put a cushion on a chair and it will meet the need. But what are the concerns with doing that? Put a cushion on top here.
Slipping.
Too high? Slipping. Changes everything. You now want a cushion on a chair. The chair is the perfect size. Great. I'm able to sit nicely. I put a cushion on. Suddenly my feet are up here. Suddenly my posture would also be affected probably because the cushion would have slipped. It won't also be exactly central probably, so I might be slipping over to the side. On top of that, as I raise the chair up, it is possible that it will slide off. So there's lots of reasons why we wouldn't do it. But if you do have the right height chair, so you can get a height adjustable high back armchair, for example, and put a cushion on top, and you can meet the need. The one other consideration is the armrest height. So if the person is reliant on the armrest to push themselves up, it's very difficult to do that as the armrests are too low in relation to where you're sitting. Now, this is something to consider. It's again, sometimes you'll meet the need without a riser chair, without having to have built-in pressure, but other times it is another option, and we'll show you how we can manage that in here. Posture management, key. Yeah, so we've got people that have a tendency to lean. It may be because they have generalized weakness. They may have had a stroke. They may have a kyphosis or a curvature of the spine. Anywhere else, they might have a scoliosis. It can impact on so much if they've got poor posture. So they're tending to lean. They're not upright. What kind of impact can that have? What are the risks associated with poor posture? Any thoughts? Pain. Yeah. Pressure, absolutely. So if I'm leaning this way all the time, I've got pressure building up in just small areas, and therefore it's going to be higher risk areas. Anything else?
Reduced lung function.
Yeah. You also got really limited upper limb function. I'm leaning here. I'm actually not able to use this arm because I'm so dependent on it as well. Breathing, circulation, digestion. If I'm in this position, that's all compromised. So now I've not got a clear airway, I've not got clear processes there. It's just going to complicate things for me. We had a gentleman that an OT asked for a seating assessment. Gentleman had very poor posture in his chair. He happened to be on 24/7 oxygen. He needed an alternative seating to be comfortable and safe. And the seating assessment was completed, and they provided him with a tilting space chair. And his SATS levels were significantly better. His saturation levels, his oxygen levels were much, much better. and he didn't need oxygen as much. Now that wasn't why they provided the chair, but they hadn't thought about the fact that he was in this position, crushed, uncomfortable, airways are being blocked a little bit, and that affected his breathing. Whereas when he was suddenly in a nice maintained upright position, he could breathe much more easily. So he now wasn't as dependent on the oxygen, he had good posture, he was much more comfortable, and it just improved his overall quality of life. So it was just something that kind of came as a bypass of it, but actually it made a big difference to him overall. So posture management is definitely very key. And again, like we just saw, if your posture is managed better, your pressure care is managed better as well. But going back to transfers and size is really key, because if the size is not right, let's say I've got a seat depth and actually it's not long enough, it's too long, this is what happens. Again, you've got that risk of poor breathing, you've got back pain risk, you've got contractures risk, you're just not well supported. Upper limb function can be affected, and transfers can be really difficult as well. Even if you've got the rise function, you're not going to want to try and rise someone from this position, because that is they will slip out. So what might a person do? They might try and shuffle themselves back. Risk here, shear, and friction. It's hard work. Yeah, so we don't want them to be having to do that. So if we're looking at the size, let's say we've got the size correct, I'm able to sit down, and what am I getting? Good pressure distribution, good postural support, ability to manage transfers more easily. Size is so important when it comes to seating provision. Okay, and then the last one, just the last two, so we're dealing with the lower limbs. By raising the limbs, we're allowing for the fluid to drain. If the fluid drains, we're reducing that build-up, and therefore actually they may improve their ability to transfer, to mobilise, and lift legs into bed. It's a common issue, isn't it? Lifting legs into bed is really hard when you've got heavy edematous legs.